Hey there, all you min-max monsters and you roleplay partiers. It's time to kick off a new campaign, and today on Dragons and Dice, we're talking about Session 0. Welcome to Dragons and Dice. So time for Session 0, the game before the game. It's when you finally have to pull the trigger on one of the multitude of character concepts and put them all down on the sheets. I love this part as a DM. It's when you get to see what all the characters have come up with, the fun ideas they have, their backstories, and you get to set up your whole campaign. This will also be the session where we decide on what setting we're going to be playing in, whether it's homebrewed or a module. We normally use homebrew at my tables. And then you also get to decide on what species are going to be allowed, how high magic level you're going to be playing, and how strict on rules you're going to be. And I think it's really important to set this up right off the rip. If you're going to be playing rules as written, the players need to know that. Or if you're going to be playing Rule of Cool and wanting players to try crazy out-of-the-box stuff, they need to know that that's an option. This is a great time to set it up. That way people don't feel like you're changing things on them as you go on through. Personally, I like the Rule of Cool. I'm pretty lax on dropping the rule gavel except where it breaks the game. And if the thing you want to try sounds awesome, more power to all of us if you get to pull it off. You also get to decide what level you're starting at, and it's good to go ahead and do those level ups at this point. If you're going to start a campaign at level 3 or 5 or 7, it's a good time to go over that. And then it's decide on what characters, classes, roll some stats, create your backstories, and just have a good time hanging out together, planning on what you're about to do in D&D. This will also be the session where you want to finalize what kind of story you're wanting to tell and to make sure that the players are interested in being a part of it. If you already have your BBEG in mind, that's a big bad evil guy or gal for those that don't know. That part will kind of take care of itself as long as the people at your table or game go and fight whatever that is. Some campaigns will be really cut and dry. You're headed to grab an item, take to so-and-so, kill all the stuff on the way. There'll be ones where there's one big bad that the party knows about at the start, or there can be more complicated campaigns where the party starts off and they don't know who they're going to be fighting or what's the main objective of the campaign. And these are kind of the ones I've drawn to because I really love the lore drop and reveal as people find out more and more. And it kind of plays out like a little bit of a mystery. There's a bunch of stuff happening to the party, but they don't know exactly who's causing it, and then they keep finding out more stuff, and then they see the big bad or the big bad's minion, and then they just get to keep working through until they figure out how to get to wherever the enemy's at. And I feel like these campaigns really are fun, and that's the kind I like to run and the ones I normally create. It just gives that air of intrigue, and I feel like it's a good hook to keep your players invested in the game and excited about what they're going to find out next. As DM, this is one of my first goals, and why I like this type of campaign. D&D should always be about a group of people telling a story together and not just the DM having their agenda out on the table at all times and letting the players kind of craft where they go. And if it's like a mystery style campaign, you get to find some really creative things as people miss clues that you think they should got, and they read things in that you didn't necessarily know were there, but you get to, on the fly, ad-lib, add it into the campaign. It looks like it's canon from the beginning, and it just makes for really fun nights at the table. And I think it makes for a really fun and engaging table overall as you run a long campaign. I would like to add one note right here about Session 0. It's a good time to figure out what your players are interested in doing too in a campaign. If it's going to be all political intrigue and take place in one big city with no real wilderness area, you need to make sure that's something that your group of players is interested in doing. Or if it's going to be a super deep dungeon crawl and you're going to be doing 15 levels in one massive dungeon, make sure that people are interested in that. It should be you should set your campaigns up in a way that make it where everyone at the table gets to do some of the stuff they like. D&D is always going to have the 3 pillars of exploration, combat, and social encounters. And you just need to make sure that you can use this Session 0 as a time to figure out what that ratio needs to be and kind of customize whatever campaign you're running it so that your players can have the most fun time. And it gives them times to shine in the areas that they care the most about. Another nice side effect of these conversations about what the people want to do and what they're interested in is you'll get lots of ideas, and they work great for one-shots. If you got somebody that's like, oh man, I want to fight dinosaurs and do a prehistoric thing, you can be like, oh man, evil wizard's got an island. He's cloning, super T-Rexes over there. go fight them. Or if people are like, let's go to Shadowfell, you can be like, well, the Raven Queen and Orcus are having a bout, pick a side, go nuts. It just, all the ideas that players have of things they want to do as the DM can be stuff that you put in your pocket and either add into your campaign later, or it can be something that when you get a chance to do like a one-shot over a holiday or somewhere else, you add one of these ideas in and that's what you run. It's a really nice time at session 0 for the DM to be able to like glean some good materials to add into their repertoire and either add into this campaign or just have in your back pocket for later. It really works out to everybody's advantage if you all can get on the same page here. D&D takes a long time to finish. Even short campaigns will be 3-4 months, and long campaigns can run for multiple years. And it's hard to find time when everyone can meet, and it's really important to build a good story in a world that your players are invested in. As a DM, you're almost always going to be the most invested player, as it takes so much to homebrew a whole world and do all the things that go along with that. But if you keep it to where everyone's excited to be there and interested in the story and you're building it together, you'll have a full table all the time and you'll get to spend more time playing and less time looking for groups, which is always a plus as a DM or a player. And going over all the particulars of a campaign before it starts, make sure that everyone's invested. I will make a little sidebar here as a DM. Something I like to do is about every 4 to 5 sessions, I like to either on a group text or individually send out to all my PCs, ask them what they've liked about the last month's, that's been going on in the campaign. And if they were, oh, we loved that time in the town with so-and-so and, drinking at the bar, we'll add more city things in. Or if they were, we really missed the dungeon crawl we did, last month, we would like to do another one of those. It's just about communication. If you keep talking to your players, you can kind of customize the campaign to make it to where they're very interested in it and that everyone at the table is at least getting to do some of the things they really care about. And I think that makes for a really cohesive and fun group, and it's fun to DM for, and it seems like it's fun for the players to play in too. After you've went over all this and everyone's happy and you kind of have the parameters of what you're going to be doing in the campaign and who you're fighting and where you're going and all that, it's time to make some characters. As DM, this is the time you decide what species you're going to allow and what books and magic spell list and all that you're going to add into the game. This is more important for a homebrew setting. If you're using a pre-made module, they'll have a lot of the parameters already set for you and classes and things to go off of. I normally just blow the doors off of it here and let people do whatever they want, as long as we can figure out a way that they ended up getting that flyer to go kill the rats in the inn cellar at the start of the game. This may not work for every group that you have. Some people need a little more restraints, is that old cliche of creativity will grow better in a box than just if you give everyone everything. There's so much stuff in D&D, it can be a little overwhelming. And if that's the case, just put a little bit of restrictions on things, make people deal with it. Everybody's on the same playing field. It'll work out great. If you do have a bunch of new players at your game, I would definitely suggest limiting the amount of races and being able to use spells from every book. Like I said, it's just a lot to take in. And as the DM, I think it's a really great time if you're running the game for new players to work out their characters and their classes with them. And if they have no idea, like my wife started playing for the first time, she had no clue what she wanted to do. And so we just went through like some simple questions, and it's a really good template for helping new players out. We were just like, hey, do you want to be a damage dealer, or do you want to be like someone that supports the party and does buffs and heals? Do you want to be up front taking damage? Do you want to be a combo of these? You ask those questions, they figure out like, oh yeah, I want to do damage. And then you're like, okay, cool. Do you want to be a ranged character, or do you want to be a melee character? She decided on, I'd like to be a ranged character. I think I'd like to be an archer. And I was like, okay, that's great. Now we have a couple options from that, and she can be a ranger or a fighter, or, possibly a rogue if you wanted to go with a sneak attack from range. And then we asked, do you want to be able to do magic? Who doesn't want to be able to do magic? But she said yes. It's kind of narrowing it down to a ranger. And then from there, we went into subclasses because she was like, I want to be an archer. I want to be able to shoot stuff from way away. I want to be able to cast some magic. And then she was like, what can I do about getting a pet? And I was like, rangers are perfect for that. We started looking at subclasses, and she was like, do you see this one's called a Drake Warden? They get a pet dragon. And I was like, that sounds awesome. They hit really hard. I think you'd love it. That's what she settled on. And she's been playing with us for the, last 4 or 5 months. It's been great. And it was just a simple walkthrough. It didn't take too long. We filled out a character sheet together. She joined the game with us. It's just a really simple way of walking people through what seems like a very complicated system, and it is. There's a lot to D&D, but at the end of the day, it's I have an idea for this person and I want them to be able to do this, use the DM, work it out with them. There's infinite possibilities, and if you're running a homebrew campaign, there's even more, because you can just make up whatever you need to make it fit. And I think that's one of the joys of being a DM, and one of the joys of this game is it's so flexible and you get to be so creative. I know what you're thinking. Hey DM, we've been here forever and we haven't rolled any dice. Well, now it's time. Let's roll those stats. We like to play with a few add-ons here. My homebrew rule for the tables I run are you can either roll your stats or you can take standard array. I'm not a huge fan of the point buy system. It just leads to a little more min-max than I really like for long campaigns. If you're doing one shot, that's great, and that's your prerogative, however it works for you all. But the rules we use are standard array or roll. And when you roll your dice, if you get 2 stats that are under a 10, you can re-roll one of them, but you have to take the new roll. And the other rule we do is if you start off and you have 3 really bad rolls off the start, at any time you can just stop and take standard array. I find this works really well. If somebody has a really lucky night and they get to roll a monster, that's great for them. But it also stops the rest of the people at the table from having dice envy, because the worst you're going to end up with standard array. And standard array will work great for any campaign, and your character will function just like it needs to and have plenty of stats in the places it needs them. Now it's time for the homebrew item of the week. This week's homebrew item will be the Murder Mitten Kitten Crunch. This is a small pack of kitty treats that can be used by a tabaxi, a leonin, or any other cat-like species that you have in your campaign. And what this bag of treats does is it gives them a rage, and they get +3 to strength or dex-based attacks. If they're a rogue, they cannot use cunning actions while they are under the effects of the murder mittens, and they have resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So it works very similar to barbarian rage, but we added in dexterity so that all those tabaxi rogues out there can use this. There is one complication to this that you add in. It does give them a level of exhaustion each time they take a piece. The bag can have as many pieces in it as you'd like, and I think this is a good item to have in a dark apothecary. The one at our table was traded for with a half hag in one of the cities. It could be something you find in the Shadowfell or the Underdark or a slightly nefarious potions area. I like using consumable items as homebrew items to give the party. It's a nice little get for them, and they feel good about getting something new and something fun, and then they have to pick when they want to use it. It also doesn't break your game, because if you give out something too strong, they never want to let go of it and they never want you to nerf it. So consumables are always a nice item to give out if you're doing homebrew items. Okay, the next thing in session 0 is an absolute gold mine for the DMs, and that's going to be the character backstories. As DM, this is one of the best nights for you to pick up on free goodies and just add them straight into your campaigns. One of the things I like to do with each of my players at the table is ask them to give me at least a paragraph of what their character was doing before they got there, what their goals in life are, the whole backstory thing. I just ask them to give me as much effort as they're comfortable doing. Some people write out whole short stories on their first loves and how they got to where they were and the dungeons they've been in and all the great things they've done in their life up to this point. Other people just give me a paragraph or 2. We go from there, and it's great things. They don't have to be super in-depth, but the more they give you to work with, the easier your job in creating a rich world for these players to run amok in is going to be. It's also a good time to figure out how the party came to be together. That's why all these people are going to bond together and go on this adventure. It's a good time for the players to learn what the other people were before they got to where they're at today, and then start to meld together. I think one of the things as a DM, it's really easy to get people to role play with you because you're kind of steering the ship. It's really fun when your players will role play with each other in character, and that's one of those things that just kind of happens organically. You can't really force it as the DM, because if you're forcing it, then they aren't role playing together. You're already got your hands in it. This is one of those things where if you let the players start discussing their backstories at session 0, they get to know what each of the characters at the table are going to be doing and how they got there. And I think that just makes for a more cohesive and fun D&D night every time through the campaign, because you get rivalries built up, and you get so-and-so likes this, and you remember the time that this guy went over here and stole all these bagels. It just makes for hilarity, and they get to play their characters like they have histories, and that turns out to be really fun. And here's another option for the player characters out there. I had one guy at my table who put what he wanted his backstory to be into ChatGTP, and it spit out a really cohesive and nicely worded D&D backstory. It's like 2 pages long. And that was off a paragraph that he wrote. And it gave me all kinds of stuff. I built a little side quest off his backstory. I could not believe how well the little AI writer did his backstory for him. It worked out really nicely. Some of your PCs won't be interested in doing this much of it. Some people want to just go smash heads. That's perfectly okay. Whatever level of roleplay people are comfortable doing in D&D as the DM, you should facilitate that. We have one guy at the character. He's the exact opposite of that. He's written out like 3 different short stories of the future of his character if he lives through the campaign. He's written out how his character got there. He wrote a small short story. It was like 5 pages, 6 pages long before the campaign even started. I absolutely loved it. It gave me 3 NPCs. It gave me a town. It gave me a mini boss. That's all just absolute gold as a DM when someone gives you that much stuff to work with. If the characters put time in to building their backstories, it's great. Use all that stuff. We'll have 2-3 sessions worth of material off of that guy's backstory, and I try to do this with each person that gives me a full fleshed out backstory. I will turn it into a little side quest. I think it shows the character that I'm invested in what their character has done up to this point, and I think it also lets the players have that chance to shine where this is their quest and it's about how they got there. Make my little second DM sidebar here. If you ask your players to do this and they take the time to put in a nice complex backstory, then you as the DM need to respect what they've given you and use it and build in their character arcs at the table. I think it's one of the more important things to do as a DM. I always know as the DM I'm always excited for the next trap or the fight or some way to catch someone in that weird agreement they made with the devil, and you're gonna monkey's paw them later. But there'll always be time as the DM to fit in your stuff. If your players steer you in a different direction, it's your responsibility to respect that and work with it. If your game has, a big half-orc barbarian, and his backstory, he mentions that he despises goblins after they sold his father's sword. If you don't put a goblin stronghold where Borog can go smash some goblin faces in, regain his cool sword, and reclaim his family's honor in the process, I feel like you haven't done justice to that character's backstory. And it makes the players feel like, well, why did I do all this if I have all these events that have happened in my life and they don't pertain to anything? If y'all work together and the DM puts the work in to use the backstories to make side quests, I think it makes the players feel much more enmeshed and involved in the world that you're going about. Using all this material that you get at session 0 is a great way for you to expand your campaign if you have the space for. If you're running a long-term campaign that doesn't have any set ending, there's no point you shouldn't do this. If you're only going to be setting up in like a small module for 3 or 4 sessions and then do something else, you might skip out on adding in a whole bunch of backstory quests. But if you're running a 3 to 5 player table and each of them give you a couple backstories that you can add into quests, you've got 4 or 5 sessions at least, if not more, just out of the little stuff they've given you. And it's real simple to just add all that into your campaign. And I think it makes for a fun time, and it's rewarding to both you as the DM and to the players who get to go do that quest that they obviously care about. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been in their backstory. Figuring out how to use these backstories at session 0, it's great for the DM, and it's also great for the players. It gets you more involved in the game, and it lets you really dial up the emotion of a campaign. If someone's got a backstory where they lost a loved one, or they're trying to be reconciled with someone, it lets you really pull on the emotions that you can experience in D&D. And the whole point of the game is about having a good time with friends. And if y'all are communicating at session 0, it gets everybody on the same page and ready to move forward. And I think that's the prevailing theme for a good session 0. It's going to be the best time to just talk it out. Use those communication skills. I know a lot of you probably took the hermit background and you're like, I don't have to do that. I'm not proficient in communication. It's okay. It's session 0. You get advantage on those rolls, and it's a safe place. This gets to be the foundation of your campaigns. It'll set the stage for everything that you do and that the group hopes to accomplish. And first and foremost, those goals should just be having fun, hanging out with friends, or making new ones if you're at a new table. And if there's anything I love most about D&D, it's the ability to pull all types of people together into one area, give them a good avenue for making friends, sharing their creativity, and showing off their personalities. It's just great, and it's what, as DMs, I think we should try to facilitate at our tables. And I think Session 0 is where that should start for each campaign. Well, folks, that's it for this episode of Dragons and Dice. Thanks for listening, and if you like what we're doing here, please like, subscribe, or leave a review. It really helps with exposure of a new show. So until next time, may your D20s roll high, and may your DMs be kind.